कैलाशवासी देवता। शिव भाल सोहे चंद्रमा, सोहे जटा भागीरथी। शिव भाल सोहे चंद्रमा, सोहे जटा भागीरथी। प्रभु नीलकंठ दिगंबरा, शोभाय कुलच विराजती। प्रभु नीलकंठ दिगंबरा, शोभाय कुलच विराजती। नागेश जन जन के पिता, दीनानाथ है विश्वनाथ है। नागेश जन जन के पिता, दीनानाथ है विश्वनाथ है। वामांग सोहे अंबिका, दीनानाथ है विश्वनाथ है। वामांग सोहे अंबिका, दीनानाथ है विश्वनाथ है। कैलाशवासी देवता। शिव से ही सोहे जीवन, सोहे सकल ये वसुंधरा। शिव से ही सोहे जीवन, सोहे सकल ये वसुंधरा। पर्वत सलिल सागर नदी में, व्याप्त शिव परमेश्वरा। पर्वत सलिल सागर नदी में, व्याप्त शिव परमेश्वरा। सृष्टि ने गिन से भव्यता, दीनानाथ है विश्वनाथ है। सृष्टि ने गिन से भव्यता, दीनानाथ है विश्वनाथ है। वामांग सोहे।
प्रेम से बोलो मापति महादेव की जय। जय जय सीताराम। सब कोई नमस्ते, सत श्री अकाल, जय गुरुदत्ता, Om Sai Ram, pranams, swagatam to each and everyone this evening. As customary, devotees, welcome to Shivoham, episode number 103. And let us all sit upright. If you're on the floors, please cross your legs. If you are on a chair, please sit with your backs up straight, upright. If you gently clasp your hands, bow your heads, close your eyes, barely opening them, looking at the tip of your noses. If you were to clasp your hands, you touch your fingers, your thumbs back to your chest area, the heart area. Focus on that space between the thumbs and the heart, and instill that image of Bhagwan Shri Ganesha as we begin this beautiful evening of devotion. Prem se bolo Gajanan Swami ki jai. Breathe in. Exhale. Breathe in one more time. Exhale, and then a third time. Breathe in. Exhale. Hari Om. Ganeshaye Namaha. Shri Saraswatye Namaha. Shri Guru Charana Kamalebhyo Namo Namaha. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Matrurupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Karapura Gauram Karunavataram Samsara Saram Bhujagendraharam Sada Vasantam Hridaya Ravinde Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami Atulita Baladhamam Ema Shailabadeham Danujavan Krishanu Jnaninamagraganyam Sakala Gunanidhanam Vanaranamadhisham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vatjatam Namami Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanur Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru Yata Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati Bharata Abhyuthanamasa Dharmasya Tadatmanam Srijamyaham Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chadushkritam Dharma Sanstha Pranathaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om. Prem se bolo Gajanan Swami ki Jai. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. My dear brothers and sisters, and those especially of you joining us for the very first time, as always we chant the very beautiful 6 verses of the Nirvana Shattakam composed by Adi Shankaracharya ji. These beautiful verses dedicated to the feet of Bhagwan Shiva. It means I am Shiva, I am Shiva. The chorus, Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I'd like to ask all of you tonight, please join with me as we sing very beautifully. Prem se bolo Mahapati Mahadeva ki Jai. Come on devotees, join with me. Om Mano Buddhi Ahankar Chittani Naham Nacha Struha Jihave Nacha Grahanitri Nacha Bhum Bhume Natejo Navayo Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. Sing with me. Bolo. Nacha Pran Sanghyo Nave Panchavayu Nava Saptadhatur Nava Panchakosha Nava Panipadam Nachopasya Payu Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Bolo. न मे द्वेष रागो न मे लोभमोह न मे वैमदो नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न काम से बोलो. Beautiful.
न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोजन् न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम्.
अति सुंदरम बोलो.
न मे मृत्युशङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्मः न बन्धुर्न मृत्यं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम्. शिवोऽहम् बोलो. अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकार रूपो विभुजवाच सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न चासङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेयः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम्. प्रेम से बोलो. चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहम्. शिवोऽहम्.
प्रेम से बोलो महापति महादेव की जय. My dear brothers and sisters, now we turn to the very first shloka of Sri Ramcharitamanas, the golden pages of Ramayana, composed by Kavi Samrat Sahitya Chakravarti Goswami Tulsidas Ji. This beautiful composition called the Mangalastakam, a beautiful prayer dedicated to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, Mother Vani, the goddess of speech, Lord Ganesha, Ganapati Bhagavan, the protector, the remover of all obstacles, and of course the sage Valmiki. Goswami Tulsidas Ji writes now, Mangalastakam.
वर्णानाम् अर्थसङ्घानाम् रसानां छन्दासामपि मङ्गलानां च कर्तारो वन्दे वाणी विनायको भवानी शङ्करो वन्दे श्रद्धा विश्वासरूपिणो याभ्यां विना न पश्यन्ति सिद्धाः स्वान्तस्थम् ईश्वरं वन्दे बोधमयमेत्यं गुरुं शङ्कररूपिणो यामाश्रितो हि वक्रोऽपि चन्द्रः सर्वतः वन्दते सीताराम गुणग्राम पुण्यारण्यवृवाहृणो वन्दे विशुद्ध विज्ञानो कवीश्वर कपीश्वरो. प्रेम से बोलो भगवान रामचंद्र की जय.
My dear brothers and sisters, tonight the great message of Ganapati as we prepare to sing his bhajans. We are now in this festive season of Ganesha Utsava. The knowledge of the seer and the seen is the great message of Ganapati Bhagavan, whose advent we are celebrating in this time. You see, Ga means buddhi, the intelligence. Na means vijnana, wisdom. Pati means the master. So, Ganapati is the master of all knowledge, intelligence and wisdom. There's also another significant meaning for the word, that he is the leader of all the Ganas, who are celestial beings. He's also called Vinayaka, which the term means that he is one who has no master above him. Prathama Pujye, he's always worshipped first. He is the supreme master, and he's beyond the mindless stare. One who has still the mind cannot have any master. Brothers and sisters, without understanding this truth, we think of the physical form of Vinayaka with the elephant head and a human body with a big tummy. Not so. Whenever people want to commence any undertaking or start learning music or the fine arts or any branch of knowledge for that matter, they always first worship Vinayaka. He is also called Lambodhara, which means the guardian of wealth. Lakshmi Swarupa. Hare Lakshmi. Here, Lakshmi represents all the wealth and prosperity, and not only dhanam, money, for which there is a separate deity called Dhanalakshmi, one of the 8 forms of Mahalakshmi. Here, wealth means sukha and ananda, pleasure and bliss. What is the use of having all other things when no one has pleasure and bliss? Devotees, Ganapati endows us with supreme intelligence. Ganapati is the one who gives us spiritual potency and endows us with supreme intelligence. These two are termed as Siddhi and Buddhi, respectively. Siddhi and Buddhi are described as his 2 consorts. As he is the Adhipati, the master of Siddhi and Buddhi, he is regarded as their husband in mundane terms. Let's make no mistake. Vinayaka has no desire, and hence there is no need for him to have any sort of wife or children. Adoration of Vinayaka as Prathama Vandana, the deity that is to be saluted, mentioned in the Vedas. Ganapati Tattva finds a place in the Vedas and the Upanishads. Reference to him is made also in the Gayatri. He is one who instills purity in body and fearlessness in the mind. I repeat, he is one who instills purity in the body and fearlessness in the mind. It is said, Tanno Dhanti Prachodayata, giving importance to his tusk. Some people are out of our ignorance. We comment upon the big animal form of this primal deity and question how one with such a huge form can ride on a little mushaka, a little mouse, which is depicted as his vehicle. You see, the mushaka is symbolic of the darkness of ignorance, while Ganesha signifies the effulgence of wisdom that dispels that darkness of ignorance. You see, may this period of Ganesha Utsav always serve as a reminder that the Supreme Lord of the universe removes all obstacles that impedes the progress of his devotees. And let me take this opportunity to wish you all a very holy, safe and Shubha Ganesh Chaturthi. Prem se bolo Gajanan Swami ki Jai. Tonight, devotees, before we go into our Ganesh Bhajans, let us, of course, as we always do, chant now 11 recitations of the Shri Maha Mantra, the Gayatri Mantra, the mantra of all mantras. Let us pray. Take a deep breath in. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Prem se bol Gajanan Swami ki Jai. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Shuklam Bhadararam Vishnum Shashivaranam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Viganopashante. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Tonight, devotees, as always, a beautiful bhajan dedicated now to the feet of Bhagwan Shri Ganesha. As we call upon him tonight, we ask for that Shakti, that Siddhi, Lambodhara, Gajanana, Sashi Shekhara Vandana, all the names of Bhagwan Shri Ganesha, as we call upon him tonight. Let us blend our beautiful voices as we sing. Prem se bolo Gajanan Swami ki Jai. Sing with me, come on, bolo. Vande Ganapati Vighna Vinashana Elambodhar Gajanana. Vande Ganapati Vighna Vinashana Elambodhar Gajanana. रिद्धि सिद्धि के दाता तुम हो, रिद्धि सिद्धि के दाता तुम हो, हे शशि शेखर वंदना, हे शशि शेखर वंदना. प्रेम से बोलो, sing with me, हरि बोल. वंदे गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हे लंबोदर गजानना. जो ध्यावे वांछित फल पावे, जो ध्यावे वांछित फल पावे, अग्रदेव तू ही वंदना, अग्रदेव तू ही वंदना. वंदे गणपति विघ्न विनाशक हे लंबोदर गजानना. बोलो. वंदे गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हे लंबोदर गजानना. रिद्धि सिद्धि के दाता तुम हो, रिद्धि सिद्धि के दाता तुम हो, रिद्धि सिद्धि के दाता तुम हो, हे शशि शेखर वंदना. वंदे गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हे लंबोदर गजानना. जय गणेश. काम क्रोध मद लोभ बाधि हरो, काम क्रोध मद लोभ बाधि हरो, निर्विकार निर्मल मना, निर्विकार निर्मल मना. गंडे गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हे लंबोदर गजानना. वंदे गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हे लंबोदर गजानना. रिद्धि सिद्धि के दाता तुम हो, रिद्धि सिद्धि के दाता तुम हो, हे शशि शेखर वंदना, हे शशि शेखर वंदना. प्रेम से बोलो, एवरीबॉडी सिंग. वंदे गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हे लंबोदर गजानना. वंदे गणपति विघ्न विनाशन हे लंबोदर गजानना, हे लंबोदर गजानना, हे लंबोदर गजानना. प्रेम से बोलो गजानन स्वामी की जय. ओम गम गणपतये नमः. ओम एकदंताय विद्महि वक्रतुंडाय धीमहि
Tanno Danti Prachodayat Gajanan Swami Ki Jai. Prayavadi Sajjano Bhai aur Bahino, my dear brothers and sisters, friends. Shivoham, universal healing through oneness. Tonight, our 103rd episode. Let me say tonight, welcome, swagatam to my virtual audience, to all of you listening tonight on my Facebook page at FL Pandit, Pandit. Those of you listening tonight also logged on to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and those of you live tonight on Bhakti TV, my dear brother Pandit Satyana Maharaji, thank you very much for simulcasting us on Bhakti TV. Tonight, I'd like to welcome mothers, fathers. I say a special hello tonight, special pronouns to my parents. My mom, Srimati Ms. Grace Pasadji, and of course my dad, Sri Mahan Pandit, Sri Teacher Tulsi Pasad, listening down in Trinidad. My dear Reverend Gurus, Reverend Panditas and Pandits, uncles and aunties, nieces, nephews, cousins, brothers and sisters, friends and relatives, children, my dear grandchildren, and of course my loving godchildren. Blessed are we tonight to be amongst each other in this virtual collaborative satsang, in this virtual yakshala called Shivoham. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarukam Niva Vandana Mrityur Mokshama Amrutat Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, Shivoham. Tonight, let's take a minute to call our friends and relatives and share this invitation with them, just as you would, as if you were having a little puja at your home, so that they too can share in the devotion with us. And let us lift the collective spiritual healing vibrations all across this planet tonight. I'd like everyone tonight on Facebook Live at least to tag 3 people in the comment section, particularly those who may not be aware that Shivoham is on the air. And those of you joining us for the very first time, I say to you, Swagatam, welcome. Tonight we'll perform Bhagavat Arati right to the end. And of course, prepare your thalis and so forth and get ready for this. As customary, let us begin as we do. Today being Mangalvar, Tuesday as it is, we glorify that Lord of power, that Lord of strength, Ramaduta, Sri Pavanaputta Hanumanji, as we channel the blessings of the 40 glorious verses of the Sri Hanuman Chalisa to anyone tonight who is sick and suffering, who is on their path to recovery. Tonight, we channel these positive vibrations to all of you, to those of you who have lost loved ones over the past week, over the past month, or during the past 18 months of this COVID pandemic. These 40 glorious verses of Sri Hanuman Chalisa are coming your way. If you're feeling a little down and out today, if you're unmotivated, if you're feeling dejected or rejected for that matter, I want you to concentrate. Bring that image of Pavanaputta Hanumanji, or Prabhu Sri Ram, to the center of your forehead and tejas, and join with me as we glorify him and we summon this storehouse of energy, Mahavir Swami. Prem se bolo Pavanaputta Hanuman ki Jai. Come on, devotees, sing with me tonight. Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raj Nij Mana Mukur Sudhari Barna Raghubar Bimal Jasu Jodayak Pal Chari Buddhihina Tanu Janike Somirao Pavana Kumar Bal Buddhi Vidya Deho Mohi Arahu Kales Vikar. Prem se bolo Maryara Purushottam Bhagwan Ramachandra ki Jai. Pavanaputta Hanuman ki. Sing with me. जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीश तिहु लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बल रामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी कुमट निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन वरण विराज सुवेसा कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे शंकर सुवर्ण केसरी प्रताप महाजगवंदन, विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबे को आतुर, प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया, सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियाहि दिखावा, विकट रूप धरि लंका जरावा, भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज सवारे, लाए संजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुवीर हरषि उर लाए, रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत ही संभाई, सहस्र बदन तुम्हरो यश गावे, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे, सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद शारद सहित अहिसा, जम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाटे, कवि कोविद कहि सखई कहाटे, तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा, राम मिलाए राजपट दीन्हा, तुम्हरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना, युग सहस्त्र योजन पर भानु, लील्युटाहि मधुर फल जानू, प्रभु मुद्रिका मिली मुख माही, जल ढिलांघि गए अचरज नाही, दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगमय अनुग्रह तुम्हारे देते, राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे, सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना, आपन तेज सम्हारो आपे, तीनहु लोक हांकते कापे, भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे, नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा, ओ संकट से हनुमान चुरावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे, सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा, और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे, ओ चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा, है पर सिद्ध जगत उजियारा, साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे, अष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता, असवर दीन जानकी माता, राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा, तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे, अंत काल रघुबर पुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई, ओ और देवता चित्त ना धरही, हनुमत से ही सर्व सुख करही, संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीरा, जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई, ओ जो शत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूते ही बंधी महा सुख होई, जो यहाँ पर है हनुमान चालीसा, होए सिद्धि साखी गौरी सा,
तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, की जय नाथ हृदय महादेरा। राम सिया राम जय जय राम, राम सिया राम जय जय राम, राम सिया राम जय जय राम, राम सिया राम प्रेम से बोलो सिंग इट मी। राम सिया राम जय जय राम, राम सिया राम जय जय राम। पावन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूर्ति रूप, राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। पवन सुत हनुमान की जय, बोलो भाई सब संतन की जय। सियापति रामचंद्र की जय, सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय। प्रेम से बोलो बजरंग बली की जय, महावीर स्वामी की जय। I hope you have felt the energy, the power and the electricity felt from this beautiful recitation of Shri Hanuman Chalisa. My dear brothers and sisters, in the spirit of Shri Ganesha Utsav, we sing this beautiful composition tonight, given to this world by the great poet, the late Dadaji, Shri Pandit Hari Om Sharanji. You know, Dadaji composed this beautiful bhajan. He says, "O Ganapati, every day I prostrate at your lotus feet. You take away my pains and suffering. Each day I meditate with my mind to the Lord of strength. Oh, remove all obstacles from my path, Viganeshwara. You are the Lord of strength and intelligence and the son of Shiv Shankar. Your mercy is limitless, O Lord, and your kindness has no bounds. I have come to you because you are the most merciful." Prem se bolo Gajanan Swami ki jai. This beautiful bhajan we sing tonight. Blessings to each and every one of you. Sing with me, all know it. Come on. Nishdin namo Ganapati charan. Ati sundaram. Nishdin namo Ganapati charan. One more time. Nishdin namo Ganapati charan, Ganapati charan, jag dukh haran. Ganapati charan, jag dukh haran. Nishdin namo Ganapati charan, Nishdin namo Ganapati charan. संताप सब मन के हरे, मंगल सदा गणपति करे। संताप सब मन के हरे, मंगल सदा गणपति करे। मन कर रहा प्रातः स्मरण, मन कर रहा प्रातः स्मरण। निष्दिन नमो गणपति। प्रेम से बोलो हरि बोल। निष्दिन नमो गणपति चरण। बल बुद्धि के तुम देवता, भर भक्ति हृदय श्रेवता। बल बुद्धि के तुम देवता, भर भक्ति हृदय श्रेवता। शंकर सुवर्ण तारण करण, शंकर सुवर्ण तारण करण। बोलो निष्दिन नमो गणपति चरण। बोलो निष्दिन नमो गणपति चरण। निष्दिन नमो गणपति चरण गणपति चरण जग दुख हरण गणपति चरण जग दुख हरण निष्दिन नमो गणपति चरण निष्दिन नमो गणपति चरण निष्दिन नमो गणपति चरण। प्रेम से बोलो गजानन स्वामी की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय। Gajanan Swami ki jai. May the blessings of Lord Ganesha be upon one and all in this beautiful season of Ganesh Utsava. My dear devotees, last week, during our 102nd edition of Shivoham, we continued immersing ourselves in the leelas of Bhagwan Shri Krishna from the Bhagavatam, as these leelas were told to the King Parikshit and shared by Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba in the Bhagavata Vahini. Tonight, we'll once again continue to extract from the Bhagavata Vahini and look closely at the philosophical teachings contained in these beautiful scriptures, references from the lips of Bhagwan. And as you will recall from last week's Kathaa, Maharaj Parikshit had asked 10 questions, pertinent questions to the sage Sukmuniji. And these questions in particular covered a wide range of topics encompassing the 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. What is Dharma? Dharma is our beliefs. Artha is wealth. Kama, the sensual desires, desires for beautiful things. And of course, Moksha, beatitude or liberation. Tonight, Sukmuniji explains to the King Parikshit the significance of the avatars and but in partial incarnations at a very high level. Maharaji Parikshit asks now Sukmuniji in Bhagavatam. He says, Master, tell me at least very briefly why the Lord incarnates. So, even though only a part of him incarnated as Kapila, Dattatreya, Hayagriva, Dhanvantari and so forth, tell me about their achievements and the significance of each of these achievements, oh my dear sage. That will afford me purifying enlightenment. It will allow me to be enlightened and purified. So Sukmuniji said to the King Parikshit, he says, King, Maharaj, Devahuti, the wife of Kardama Prajapati, she bore 9 daughters and her 10th child was the Kapila form. Let us see what he means by this. The Lord, appearing as Kapila, became the preceptor and the spiritual guide to the mother Devahuti herself. He taught her the secret of attaining liberation and vouchsafed to teach her that everything that will lead to that final beatitude, that final release of the soul to gain moksha. The consort of the sage Atrimuni, Anasuya by name, she prayed for the Lord to be born as a child of her womb, and the Lord replied, he granted Dattatreya. Since the father's name was Atri, he was called Dattatreya. He showered on Karta Vira Yujna and Yadu, the emperors of high renown, who were endowed with all glory, the great treasure of yogic wisdom. And in this form of that God, in the beginning of his age, Kalpa, he moved about as the 4 child sages, Sanaka, Sanandan, Sanankumar, and Sanatana. They were always 5 years old, so innocent that they wore no clothes, so divine that they spread wisdom and peace around them. The Lord was born as the twins, Nara and Narayana. They lived in the forests around Badri in the Himalayas, practicing austerities. Their mother was Murti Devi. The Lord appreciated the intensity of the austerity of the boy Dhruva and conferred upon him the blessings of vision of concrete form, that he sanctified the lives of Dhruva's parents. He crowned him as the Lord of the polar regions, and he set him in the sky as the pole star, Dhruva. In the ancient days, devotees, when there were no compasses, the sailors, those oceaneers, they used the pole star to tell directions, to navigate, because it's in a fixed position. When the downward fallen wicked Vina was cursed and destroyed by the sages, and when his body was churned, the first sovereign ruler of the world emerged. Because the Lord took that form, he was Prithu, the first Lord Ishwara of the earth, Prithvi. By his austerity and conduct, Prithu saved his father from hell. saved his father from hell. He restored prosperity and morality to the entire world.
Our Kathaa continues, Sukhmunuji said he built villages, towns and cities on earth, and he ordered men to dwell peacefully into them, each performing their assigned duties in loving cooperation with the rest. The Lord was born again in the child of Nabhaga and Sudeva. He manifested as a realized sage and taught the supreme remedy for all ills, renunciation, tyaga, the ways of cultivating it. And later the Lord took the form as Yajya, the name for Hayagriva in a special sacrifice. Since he had the form of a horse above the neck, he was called horsehead, Hayagriva. Hayagriva's breath manifested as the Vedas. Meanwhile, the wily ogre Sobaka stole the Vedas and hid them in the surging floods of a great dissolution, Pralaya. So the Lord had to assume the form of a fish and search for the Vedas in the depths of the sea, destroy the ogre, and bring the Vedas to be restored to Brahma. This re-established on earth the ways of living, had laid down in the Vedas and the goal of life marked out therein. Thus, the Lord has assumed many forms for each appropriate need. He manifested himself on countless critical occasions and showered his grace on the entire world devotees. He then has destroyed the fear and agony of mankind and has rescued the good and the godly. Countless are the narratives of such advents. His will result in his advent. So it is foolish to investigate the reasons that prompted him to incarnate. Those who seek to know or lay down the causes for God's willing, one way or another, are really on an impertinent adventure. So also are those who assert that his power and plans have such characteristics, qualifications and limits. Those who claim to know that the Lord will only act in this particular mode, and those who declare that the divine principle is one of this nature and not otherwise. Sukhmunuji continues how he says, the Lord's power and glory knows no bounds. Do we know this? Do we understand this concept? Let's see what he says. He says there can be no limit or obstacle to his will. The Lord, the manifestation of his power and his glory knows no bounds. The Bhagavatam tells us he fructifies all that he wills and he manifests it in whatever form he wills. He is unique, incomparable and equal only to himself. He is his own measure, witness and authority. Once, the Lord was so touched by the sincerity of Narad's devotion to him that he assumed a form of a celestial swan, a Hamsa. And he explained to Narad Muni the nature of spiritual devotion, bhakta, of Bhagavan, and of the relation between the two so that aspirants might be led and liberated. He placed the wisdom and the path on a foundation strong enough to survive to the end of this present age, this Kali Yuga age, without any fear of defeat or decline. It is in our scriptures, devotees. He rendered the seven worlds shining in purity, thought, the splendor of his spotless renown. And during the great churning of the ocean of milk, Chir, Sagar, Mathan, Samundra Mathan, the Lord assumed the form of a tortoise to hold up that Mandara mountain peak while it was being the churning rod, not so? So the rope doesn't slip. And at the very time, the Lord also took the form of Dhanvantri to bring the divine vessel filled with the immortality granting nectar, the Amrita. And as Dhanvantri, he taught how to conquer diseases and enable men to cure their physical ills. He rendered many famous and physicians and doctors skilled in diagnosis and cure. And he did much more, O King, O Maharaja. Until then, physicians and doctors were not entitled to receive a share of the offerings made to the gods and sacrifices. Dhanvantari then laid down that they must be given a share, and thus he raised their status in society. Did you note the inscrutable sports of the Lord, which are so evident in these manifestations? Bhagwan, God alone knows the ways of God. How can others gauge their grandeur and their glory? How can they successfully measure them in their poor equipment of intellect and imagination? And since men are bound by the shackles of ignorance, ajnana, they argue and dilate long and loud on God and his attributes and flounder in the skin of sacrilege. Instead, man would win the grace of God if he would only discard doubt when he sees divine manifestations and keeps his picture of God untarnished by passing moods and acts and in conformity with the manifestations of God he is privileged to witness. And if he acts otherwise, he cannot ever hope to win the name and grace or taste the bliss of Bhagwan. Amongst these, the incarnations of Rama and Krishna. I want you to listen to this part of the Kathaa now, very beautifully, as we go into the two most popular avatars. Amongst these, the incarnations of Rama and Krishna are the most meaningful to mankind. Since man can grasp their example, follow their solutions to problems, and derive spiritual bliss, anandam, through their contemplation of their excellences and teachings. These two have installed themselves in the hearts of mankind and are receiving the adoration of men all around this world. I'll tell you about the more noteworthy incidents in the careers of these two incarnations. I want you to listen, O Maharajji, as there's a beautiful bhajan tonight, as we glorify Maryada Purushottam Sri Ramchandra Bhagavan, the first of the two most popular avatars that we'll speak about tonight in this beautiful bhajan. The bhajan tells us tonight, the bhajan tells us, a devotee of Lord Rama says to him, "Oh Lord Rama, I have come to worship you, Lord. Please don't leave Ayodhya. Please let me remain at your lotus feet always and keep me in your abode, O Rama. Please don't go away." Beautiful bhajan tells us tonight. Come on, devotees. Sing it Garba style, okay? Come on, clap your hands. Sing along with me. Clap your hands and sing.
रामा हो राम रे भूल मत जाना तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ सिंह ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ हरि बोल ब्यूटीफुल सुंदरम रामा हो राम रे भूल मत जाना तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के फूल लाया फल लाया तेरे लिए 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 तुझको चढ़ाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा तुझको चढ़ाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के रामा हो राम रे भूल मत जाना तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के दूध लाया दही लाया तेरे लिए 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 तुझको खिलाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा तुझको खिलाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के रामा हो राम रे भूल मत जाना तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ जय श्री राम धूप लाया दीप लाया तेरे लिए हरि बोल धूप लाया दीप लाया तेरे लिए धूप लाया दीप लाया तेरे लिए धूप लाया दीप लाया तेरे लिए तुझको दिखाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा तुझको दिखाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के बोलो रामा हो राम रे भूल मत जाना तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के ईंट लाया पत्थर लाया तेरे लिए ईंट लाया पत्थर लाया तेरे लिए ईंट लाया पत्थर लाया तेरे लिए बोलो ईंट लाया पत्थर लाया तेरे लिए मंदिर बनाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा मंदिर बनाऊंगा वापस ना जाऊंगा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के रामा हो राम रे भूल मत जाना तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के हरि बोल सिंह रामा हो राम रे भूल मत जाना तेरी अयोध्या छोड़, ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़, ओ रामा तेरी अयोध्या छोड़ के। प्रेम से बोलो मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम भगवान रामचंद्र की जय। अति सुंदरम, isn't it? So beautiful, powerful indeed, the name of Bhagwan Shri Ram. प्रेम से बोलो मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम भगवान रामचंद्र की जय. My dear devotees, tonight our Kathaa continues. I beg your pardon. Sukhmuniji now continues to speak to the king Parikshit. He discusses now very briefly the Rama avatar. Sukhmuniji resumed his narration. He says, first, I'll describe the Saumya quality of Sri Ram. Saumya. The word Saumya means gentle, soft, mild, and nature. By the way, the name Rama means the ocean of bliss, peace and happiness, gentle. He wore a leaf green gown and had a yellow cloth round his waist. He had a golden diadem, but he walked with his eyes on the ground as if he was ashamed to look up. The scene melted all the hearts of those who saw him, and no one caught him in the act of casting his look on others. No, he always had a very inner, not an outer vision. Remember this, eh? Inner vision, not outer vision. Whenever anyone offered him anything, he didn't accept it entirely, but he broke off a bit or took out just a portion in order to please them. You remember in Ramayana who he did this to? Or just touching the offering with his fingers and he gave it back to the person who brought it. Devotees, we go now into Aranyakan of Ramayana. Shivoham, as Goswami Tulsidasji writes, when Shivoham collected berries for Lord Rama every day for a number of years until finally Lord Rama appeared before her naked eyes, devotees. And what did she say? Jai Raghunandan, Jai Siya Ram, Man se jap le tu Sita Ram. The tears are flowing from the eyes of Shivoham as she gazes upon Madhyara Purushottam Sri Ram. What will you do if Lord Rama appeared in front of you? Jai Raghunandan, Jai Siya Ram, Jai Raghunandan, Jai Siya Ram. Man se jap le tu Sita Ram, Jai Raghunandan, Jai Siya Ram. Man se jap le tu Sita Ram. Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Did you feel the love? Did you feel the energy? Are the tears flowing like Shivoham when she saw Madhyara Purushottam Sri Ramchandra Bhagavan? Goswami Tulsidasji writes in his Doha, devotees, we sing tonight from Sri Ramcharitamanas, Aranyakan. Kandamula palasura sayati diye Rama kahu ani, diye Rama kahu ani. Prema sahita Prabhu सियापति रामचंद्र जी की जय शरणम. Prem se bolo Maryada Purushottam Bhagavan Ramachandra ki jai. Goswami Tulsidas writes, Shabari Ma, after collecting berries for days upon days upon days, she had a fresh set of berries now as Lord Rama approached. And as she fed Lord Rama the berries, with love and lost in ecstasy bliss towards the Lord. She would sometimes even taste the fruit before giving it to the Lord. Lakshman looked at the Lord and said, Bhaiya, please don't eat. He says, no. It's been given with love. That's not the point. You see, devotees, it's not the quantity. It's not the quality. It's not how much. It's how you give. And if it's encased with love, that offering will be accepted by Prabhu. Kandamula Parasurasayati De Rama Kahuani, he says. She brought all these berries and fruits, bulbs and fruits. Lord Rama ate the fruits, he partook of them with appreciation. Prema Sahita Prabhu Khai Baram Bar Bakhani Bolo Syapati Ramachandra ki Jai. Our Kathaa continues, devotees. Lord Rama's father-in-law and mother-in-law, he moved not as a son-in-law, but a son. He seldom opened his mouth to speak to his sisters-in-law or their maids, and he never lifted his face even to cast his eyes upon them. He revered all women older than him as he revered his own mother, Kausilya. He considered all who were younger than him as his younger sisters. Those of his own age he treated as stepmothers. He stuck severely to this truth, prana jai para vachana na jai. He surmised that if his father broke his word, the dynasty, the Raghukul dynasty, will earn great dishonor. So in order to uphold the plighted word of his father and to maintain his reputation, he exiled himself into the forest, as we all know, for 14 years. His father never asked him to do it. He learned off of it from his stepmother Kaikeyi. And he never argued or gave a reply or threw a tantrum or gave an attitude. He gave up the kingdom and started straight into the jungle. He acted correctly according to the words spoken by him, and he suited the action strictly to each word. Lord Rama, the embodiment of compassion and dharma, Sukhmanuji continues to speak to Parikshit. He says Rama's heart was filled with compassion, the ocean of compassion. He gave refuge to anyone who took shelter in him and surrendered to him. When the Vanar hordes and ogres, the Rakshasas, were engaged in deadly combat in the battle of Lanka with the wicked Ravan, some of the ogres changed themselves, they disguised themselves to look like Vanars, and they penetrated behind the lines of Sri Ram's army. Then they were promptly caught by the Vanars, the scouts, and they were brought before Lord Rama for drastic punishment. And what did he do? He did not want to punish them. He stopped the Vanars from torturing them. He says, no. He told them that if they had taken the time and made the sacrifice and to take refuge in him, and declared that his vow was to pardon all of those who surrendered to him, whatever their wrongs were. Devotees, a point tonight to make a note of. He told the Vanars that they had come to take refuge in him and declared that it was his vow to pardon all those who surrender to him, whatever their wrongs are. You see, when you surrender completely, 100%, selfless, total surrender to the feet of Bhagwan, Lord Rama, he pardons. Devotees, he had thus given refuge even to Ravan's brother, Vibhishan, and treated him as his own brother Lakshman. If he says once, I am yours, he is mine forever, Rama announced. Rama lived and taught right action dharma through his every act. He established right action dharma by practice and precept. He fostered and guarded good men, sadhus, and he removed the suffering of the godly. He drew them near himself, and their lives were fulfilled through his grace, the grace of Rama. He recognized no distinction in high and low. He saw everyone equally. He was a master of all the scriptures, the Shastras, and he knew the meaning of all the Vedas. Rama transformed the world into a realm of righteousness through his varied activities and examples. During the great horse sacrifice that he performed, the Ashwamedha Yajna, all the sages and scholars of ritual who had assembled to honor him as a great upholder of tradition and culture. His compassion and softness of heart are beyond description. Words cannot convey their depth and extent. He placed the dying eagle, remember, Jatayu, a bird which no one will, with ordinary honor, on his lap, and he wiped the dust that had enveloped with his own flowing hair. And when Jatayu breathed its last breath, he performed the final rites even as a son does when a father dies. Lord Rama was not present when his own father died to perform his rites, but he did perform the final rites of Jatayu, this dedicated bird, this vulture.
His very appearance casts a charm on all who saw him, as we know very well from Ramayana. Love, beauty, and virtue emanated from him and spread to all around him. How many of us live and practice like this? Wherever we go, love, virtue, beauty, peace, calmness emanates from us. Let us try to follow the example of Maryada Purushottam Sri Ramchandra tonight. He treated all the Bana tribes as much affection as he did towards his own brothers, Bharat, Lakshman and Shatrughan. Rama was the full manifestation of the righteous or right action, dharma, purna. Sages extolled him, saying that dharma itself had taken the human form in Maryada Purushottam Sri Ramchandra. There is no need to dilate and speak 1,000 details. For all householders, Rama is the ideal. His advent was for restoring spiritual values and saving the world from moral disaster. How affectionately he moved with his brothers. Lord Rama's sterling virtues and excellences, devotees, everything was ready for his coronation. And at the last minute, when he was to be exiled to the forest, the population of Ayodhya wailed in uncontrollable anguish. But Rama moved out of the city and kingdom with as much joy and equanimity as he had when he moved towards the throne for the coronation. What greater example is needed than this for the person whose consciousness is calm and beyond all agitations? Rama felt that the plighted word was worth the sacrifice even of one's life. Prana jai par vachana na jai. He suffered grievous hardships, with perfect equanimity in order to preserve his father's plighted word. You remember very well from Kathaa, his sincere persistence in carrying out the promise made by his father is an inspiration and an example to every son of the soil. Mata Sita insisted on accompanying her husband to the forest, since the true wife can keep alive only in the company of the husband. She had never been exposed herself to sun and rain, but she spent her days in the terror-striking forest, since it was her duty and unsullied joy. He who is born with you is more worthy of affection than she who joins you later. That was Lakshman's view when he joined his brother Rama, leaving his wife Urmila back in Ayodhya. Bharat now could only obey Rama's wish, and he came back to the capital with a heavy heart, since Rama declined to come and enthrone himself. Remember when Bharat went to Chitrakoot to meet with him, to convince him to come back to Ayodhya? Bharat then created an artificial forest for himself. That is to say, out of inner compulsion, he led an ascetic's life, since he felt he must live just like his exiled brother. Dashrath, the father of Rama, the son, were as different as earth and sky. To please his wife, to make her happy and contented, the father was prepared to bear the utmost agony, and even sent his dear son as an exile into the jungle. The son sent his wife into the jungle as an exile in order to respect the opinion of a commoner in his empire. Remember, in Uttarakhand, think of the different ways now in which the two carried out their duties to the people whom they served and ruled. Dasharatha was overwhelmed by the illusion that he was the physical body. Rama was moved by the realization that he was the Atma. The virtues and the excellences of Rama, I am incapable of describing them to you, O king. What greater task and mission in life can a man have than the contemplation of that supreme person? To save oneself from downfall, the only exercise needed is this: listen to the glorious narratives of the lives of the avatars. Who are the avatars we speak of? Rama and Krishna tonight, and all 8 of them. When do you do so? When you do so, O king, all your sins are washed away, said Sukhmuniji. Parikshit was very delighted, devotees, and his face now became flushed with excitement. He says, Master, while your account of the life and activities, the virtues and charm of Rama, the embodiment of dharma, is bestowing on me such great spiritual bliss, Ananda. I wonder how much greater would be my bliss if you describe Lord Krishna's career, his dark blue beauty personified. How sweet must be the account of Lord Krishna's childhood pranks, his boyish adventures, his divine pranks, his leelas, his divine prattle. I pray to be kept immersed in the thought and contemplation of the might and majesty, the charm and the beauty of Krishna himself in my final days, O Sukhmuniji. I pray that I may thereby be saved from the cycle of birth and death. Devotees, tonight, and yet another beautiful bhajan. It says, the bhajan says, "O man, try to discover God. He is master and you are his servant. Focus your thoughts deeply on him. For He is always correct, isn't that so? His presence is felt in the earth, fire, air, oceans, mountains, and in all regions of the universe. He gave you this birth and showed you the drama of the world. Why do you wander aimlessly on life's path, O man, oblivious of Him? Your life is getting shorter and shorter. The minutes are ticking away. Give up your desires for the things you see, hear, and taste. The sense of assurance, these things does not last. Life is a temporary show that only serves to bind you further. Give up the attachment to the world and psychologically connect with God. Heed this advice now, because you do not know if the opportunity will ever come again tomorrow. Beautiful bhajan tonight. Join with me as we sing.
ईश्वर को जान बंदे मालिक तेरा वही है, कर ले तो याद दिल से हर जाम में वो सही है। ईश्वर को जान बंदे मालिक तेरा वही है। भूमि अगन पवन में, सागर पहाड़ बन में। भूमि अगन पवन में, सागर पहाड़ बन में। सागर पहाड़ बन में, उसकी सभी भुवन में छाया समा रही है। ईश्वर को जान बंदे मालिक तेरा वही है। उसने तुझे बनाया, जग खेल है दिखाया। उसने तुझे बनाया, जग खेल है दिखाया। जग खेल है दिखाया, तो क्यों फिरे भुलाया। आयु बिता रही है। बोलो ईश्वर को जान बंदे मालिक तेरा वही है। विषयों के छोर आशा, झूठी है दिल दिलाशा। विषयों के छोर आशा, झूठी है सब दिलाशा। झूठी है सब दिलाशा। दिन चार का तमाशा, माया फंसा रही है। ईश्वर को जान बंदे मालिक तेरा वही है। जय श्री राम, जय श्री कृष्णा। दुनिया से दिल हटा ले, प्रभु ध्यान में रमा ले। दुनिया से दिल हटा ले, प्रभु ध्यान में रमा ले। प्रभु ध्यान में रमा ले, तू ब्रह्मानंद तपाले। तन का पता नहीं है, ईश्वर को जान बंदे, मालिक तेरा वही है। कर ले तो याद दिल से, हर जाम में हो रही है। ईश्वर को जान बंदे, मालिक तेरा वही है। ईश्वर को जान बंदे, मालिक तेरा वही है। Oh man, discover God, discover His amazing works. Sukhmani continues devotees in our beautiful Kathaa tonight. He says, O King Parikshit, truly, Bhagwan Shri Krishna's pranks, his leelas, are, as you said, amazing and wondrous, and yet so sweet and meaningful. They aren't tainted by the desire to show off the divine nature. The common man, you see, is drawn by external pomp and apparent motives. That's so. So he judges the divine sport, the leelas, as common and even sometimes low. The inner meaning and purpose are not easily patent to all. But the Lord can never engage himself in purposeless and paltry activities, you see. His advent is for the uplifting of the world from the morass of wickedness and unrighteousness, for fulfilling the needs of those devoted to him. Are we devoted to Bhagavan Shri Krishna? Absolutely. For the re-establishment of right and morality, and for the revival of the Vedas, the teachings of the Vedas. He has to take into account the merit acquired by each person in previous lives or karmic actions and shower his grace accordingly. And he makes himself available through the granting of boons, devotees. His divine activities are so shaped that they suit the time, the person, the aspiration and compassion that cause each and shower of grace. Therefore, who can comprehend correctly and interpret anything in this divine play? All activities of an avatar is for good of the world, is for the good of the world. You see, Parikshit, the amazing plays, the leelas of Sri Hari, are known only to Hari, it is said. He can be interpreted by him alone, not by another. However, one observation can be made with confidence. The manifest incarnations of God won't engage in the least for their own sake or for the sake of fulfilling any personal likes. You see, it is not a selfish manifestation. All activities for the good of the world, the good of mankind. Though the world cannot exist and survive without them, they move and act as if the world has nothing to do with them. In every word and deed of theirs, one can observe the underlying current of total renunciation. For them who holds the worlds in the palm of their hands, what can the world give or withhold? They can only shape it as they like. Fools, people without faith, persons who deny God, people caught up in the coils of ignorance, those who don't learn anything. These may see plays or leelas of God as self-centered and even motivated by delusion, like the actions of ordinary mortals, you see. But genuine spiritual devotees, bhaktas, will cherish them as significant and sustaining examples of God and grace. How can that fact be grasped by those who are engrossed in you, Tvam? You see, the divine love for devotees prompted Bhagavan Shri Krishna's leelas, every single one of them. Parikshit, let us see, he says, Maharaj, you should remember that the actions of Rama and Krishna are wide apart. When the wicked and cruel enemies of righteousness were about to overwhelm the good, the two brothers Krishna and Balarama were born, one black and the other white, as a head of hair, both black and white. And by their acts, they transcended the comprehension of man and astounded the entire world. Bhagavan Shri Krishna's miraculous pranks, his leelas, are beyond the comprehension of anyone, however scholarly, however wise, and however educated they may be. You see, his movement, his walk, his talk, his smile, his laughter, his gesture, his speech, even his song, each is a charm, each is charming with very unique artistry. Wherever he went, Lord Krishna did, he created some strange mischief or another. Like a typhoon sweeping over the land, he left behind a series of upheavals, quarrels, wailing and tears in every home he visited. There was no need to invite him ceremoniously into any house. He would enter uninvited and unannounced. Every house belonged to him, I repeat, to Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Every house belonged to him. Type into your chat windows, Jai Shri Krishna, come on. He would go in and out and take whatever he wanted, whenever it was hidden, wherever it was hidden, and eat to his heart's content. That was Bal Krishna. He was everyone's dearest kinsman and a very fast comrade.
so he could take anything from any house with impunity. But he wasn't contented with that. He took away much more than his own need, for he gave away large quantities to his companions, and they were quite large in number, his companions. The owners might bewail the loss and condemn the theft, but he didn't care. Mohan Muraliya Ghansham, he gave the things away as though they were his own. Devotees, no one could hinder his sport, no one could go against his word. If any dared to oppose or threaten him, the sufferings heaped on his head would be indescribable. A beautiful bhajan we sing tonight, Madhyara Purushottam Bhagwan Chandra Ji, and of course we sing tonight glorifying Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan. Govinda Gopal Mohan Muraliya Ghansham Baki Bindraban Bihari Lal Ki Jai. This beautiful bhajan tonight tells us, O Bhagavan Shri Krishna, your name is the only sustenance of my life. The world is fallacious. The relations are false, and so too the Maya is false. The only thing that is real is your name. I immersed myself in your color and have given up the materialistic things of this world. I have converted myself into a vessel of love for thee, so that in my heart your name will become the shining star. Your name is the source of love for me. The very day I can see your form, all my tribulations will vanish. For the peace I want to enjoy, Prabhu, I surrender myself at your feet. Please hold my hands, O Bhagavan Shri Krishna, and guide me. Baki Bindraban Bihari Lal Ki Jai. Type in one more time to your chat windows. Jai Shri Krishna. Let us sing this beautiful bhajan tonight. You all know it. Come on, clap your hands and sing with me.
बनवारी रे जीने का सहारा तेरा नाम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे। बोलो बनवारी रे जीने का सहारा तेरा नाम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे। झूठी दुनिया झूठे बंधन, झूठी है ये माया। झूठी दुनिया झूठे बंधन, झूठी है ये माया। झूठा सास का आना जाना, झूठी है ये काया। ओ यहाँ साचो तेरो नाम रे, बनवारी रे जीने का सहारा तेरा नाम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे। रंग में तेरा रंग गई गिरिधर, छोड़ दिया जग सारा। रंग में तेरी रंग में गिरिगर, छोड़ दिया जग सारा। बन गई तेरी प्रेम की जोगन, लेकर मन एक तारा। ओ मुझे प्यारा तेरा धाम रे, बनवारी रे जीने का सहारा तेरा नाम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे। दर्शन तेरा जिस दिन पाऊं, हर चिंता मच जाए। दर्शन तेरा जिस दिन पाऊं, हर चिंता मिट जाए। जीवन मेरा इन चरणों में आस की जोत जलाए। ओ मेरी बाह पकड़ लो शाम रे, बनवारी रे जीने का सहारा तेरा नाम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे। बनवारी रे जीने का सहारा तेरा नाम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे. Oh Bhagavan Sri Krishna, your name alone is the sustenance of life. बनवारी रे, जीने का सहारा तेरा नाम रे, मुझे दुनिया वालों से क्या काम रे. Brothers and sisters, our Kathaa continues as Sukhmuni ji continues to speak to Maharaj Parikshit. We look tonight now at Lord Krishna's smallest act was always saturated with sweetness, madhuram. But the truth must be told, he says, the smallest act of his was always saturated with supreme sweetness. Type into your chat windows, Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Krishna. Even the sufferings he inflicted on those he wanted to punish was sweet. Listen carefully now. Even the sufferings he inflicted on those he wanted to punish was sweet. So no one felt in the least amount of anger towards him, you see. Instead, they yearned to meet him more often, to play with him longer, to talk to him, and to stay with him as much as possible. Whatever his pranks and practical jokes were, the victims never felt annoyed at Bhagwan Shri Krishna. Prem se bolo ba ke Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki Jai. You see, devotees, the reason that the undercurrent of spiritual love, prema, that motivated all his words and acts. And when you and I learn to speak and act, think, words, thoughts, and deeds, encased and encapsulated with love, prema, that is the message of God. That we speak to God, devotees. The cowherd maidens, the maids, they rushed towards him with sticks to beat upon him, to beat him off. And when they neared upon him, and they cast a quick glance at him, took a look at him, their hearts became filled with divine love, and they came away with a prayer instead on their tongues, you see. Whatever he did, he appeared as the divine sport, a leela. And the manner of his speech, it was so pleasing and so clever. It was mostly intended to mislead. Yes, he put sand into his mouth before all his companions, but when his mother took him to task for it, he denied it and he put out his tongue to prove his denial. He rendered true statements false and false statements true, and he went daily to Vrishabhan Rapura, the village of Radha Rani where she lived. Many people saw him on the road while going and returning. His mother accosted him and challenged him. Why do you trek such long distances every day? Don't you have comrades here to play with? Why do you go all the way over there? He replied, I don't know that road at all. He caused confusion in every single home, created factions between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, setting one against the other. But he enjoyed the fun. It was always for a good cause. And he was seldom stationary in one place. He always moved from dawn when he rose from bed till the hour when he went back to sleep. This little bundle of mischief roamed from house to house without rest. In spite of all of this, the villagers couldn't bear his absence, even for an instant. Even if he didn't put in his appearance in any day, the milkmaids, they watched, they watched from the Arauni, the sheds in their homes, watching, looking out for his visit, peeping at the road through the windows and looking in the distance from the terrace to see if they can get a glimpse of Baki Vrindavan Bihari Lal. Such was the charm of this divine love that Lord Krishna showered upon them, and the love that the people had towards him. His pranks were so heartwarming and so inspiring and so meaningful. Devotees, even as an infant, Bhagwan Shri Krishna was the protector. Sukhmunji speaks to Parikshit again. He says, the blue boy, we call him Boy Blue, the blue boy was the master of subterfuge and diplomacy. He saw through every artifice, however cleverly it was camouflaged. And when the ogress Putana approached him as a mother to feed him at her breast, he pretended to be taken in by that stratagem, and he sucked the life out and felled her to the ground. Remember the story from the Mahabharata? Many a demon, the Asura, came near to him to destroy him, some assuming familiar forms of the cowherds and milkmaids of the village. But he discovered their identity and dispatched them to the city of death. One demon took the form of a calf and moved among the calves and cows that Lord Krishna was tending, waiting for an opportunity to kill him. But the 3-year-old divine infant saw through the device. He caught him by the tail and raised him and swung him around and beat him on the ground so that he breathed his last breath. Such strength and skill were they quite out of proportion to that infant form, not so? For little baby 3-year-old. He demonstrated his divinity in a million ways, and in order to convert and to convince man. He taught everyone, whether they were elders, women, crooks, his own kinsmen and well-wishers. He advised them in good ways. He entangled some of them in dilemmas, His maternal uncle Kansa was drunk with imperial power and heroic audacity.
He caught him by the tuft of his hair and pulled him down from the throne, fisted him to death and dragged the body along the main thoroughfare right to the bank of the Yamuna. The entire population of the city of Mathura saw it every act, and his wondrous mixture of the amazing, the astounding, and the sweet, the charming, the enticing, and the beautiful, simple Basuriwala, Mohan Muralya Ghansham, Prem se bolo Bakibindravan Bihari Lal ki Jai. Type in once again, Jai Shri Krishna. While yet an infant, he ended the lives of Putana, Trivata, Sakastura, and he thought he was just a tiny thief in the search of butter in every home. And when his mother tied him to the wooden mortar, he dragged it behind him, and with it pulled down 2 giant trees in the process that were growing together. You all remember the story? We did that Kathaa many weeks ago on Shivoham. He curbed the conceit and fury of the serpent Kalia, who had poisoned the waters of the Yamuna and made them disastrous for men and cattle. When his mother attempted to tie him up with a rope around his waist, he revealed his universal form to her, the form in which the entire universe is to be a part of him. Remember this story? His parents and the people of Gokula were wonderstruck at the remarkable experience of his divinity. Through his yawn, he showed them both the macrocosm and the microcosm. He showed his dear cowherd comrades his paradise, which he knew no grief or loss. He persuaded Nanda to stop the usual ritual worship puja for the rain god Indra and instead to worship the Govardhana hill. When Indra, stung by this neglect, poured terrible rains on the village, Bhagwan Shri Krishna held aloft the Govardhana hill on his little finger, inviting the entire village to take shelter under it. Remember the Kathaa? He raised the cowherd boys and maids into ecstatic modes by playing his basuri and playful planks and melodious music. To interpret this as low and sensuous is a sight of foolishness. Bhagwan Shri Krishna's dancing in the moonlight with the maids, each maid having a concrete Krishna by her side, is interpreted by low-minded persons as laxity of morals and vulgar pastime. Oh no, devotees, there's no basis. Our Kathaa says, Bhagwan says, there's no basis for such inference. Bhagwan Shri Krishna was only 5 or 6 years old when these miraculous incidents took place. So how can the experience be condemned as lascivious? Lord Krishna, the Lord, has no attributes or qualities. The moonlight divine dance of Bhagwan Shri Krishna, Ras Krida, also, as the incident is called, it is but a means of rendering the cowherd maids, the gopis, worthy of grace, an example of devotion and the fruit of devotion and dedication. The Lord was showering on them the grace they had earned by their meritorious acts. It was a boon, a blessing. And when that superhuman divine manifestation is taken to be merely human, lasciviousness and thievishness may be attributed towards it. But what human can achieve even iota of what he did? He saved the world from the harassment of such monstrous evildoers as Pralamba, Dhenuka, Kesi, Banasura, Arishta, Mustika, Kuvala Pinda, Kamsa, Naraka, Panduraka, Vividha, Jarasandha, Dantavakara, Kambhoja, Kuru, Matsyasura, Kalyana, and so many other powerful persons. Can it be said that this was all within the capacity of a mere man? I do not believe so. Tonight, our dear Dadaji, the late Padmashri Hariom Sharanji, Pandit Hariom Sharanji, gave us a beautiful bhajan tonight as we glorify Bhagwan Shri Krishna. As we call upon him tonight, as the gopis now, the gopikas begin to dance the Rasa Lila, we sing this beautiful bhajan. Clap your hands, come on. Jai Shri Krishna, Radhe Radhe, type it in.
कनिया लगाई के मुरली सुनाई के कान्हा छुपे हो कहाँ ओ कान्हा छुपे हो कहाँ
Sing with me, come on, Hari Bol.
मन में लगनिया लगाई के मुरली सुनाई के कान्हा छुपे हो कहाँ ओ कान्हा छुपे हो कहाँ अरे कान्हा रे अरे किसको सुनावे किसको दिखावे दिल के दर्दिया हमार हो, दिल के दर्दिया हमार हो। दुनिया बिताने तो भी ना माने, काहे को दीने भी सारे, काहे को दीने भी सारे रे। मन के तपनिया भुजाई के दर्शन दे आई के, अब ना ही हमको सता ओ, अब ना ही हमको सता। अरे कान्हा रे मोरे कान्हा, मोरे कान्हा। अरे गोकुल का चंदन नटवर का नंदन, काहे सुनो ना पुकार हो, काहे सुनो ना पुकार हो। हमको जुहारे तीरथ सारे, पै है कहाँ तोरा द्वार, ए पै है कहाँ तोरा द्वार। हरि बोल। निंदिया से हमका जगाई के, रहिया बताई के, मोहनी सूरतिया दिखा ओ, मोहनी सूरतिया दिखा। अरे कान्हा रे मोरे कान्हा, मोरे कान्हा। हरि बोल। जय श्री कृष्णा। राधे राधे। अरे मुरली बजैया हो बांके कन्हैया, भक्तों की कृष्णा मुरार हो, भक्तों की कृष्णा मुरार हो। रास रचैया हो लाज रखैया, हमरे भी काजल सवार रे, हमरे भी काजल सवार रे। हमरे नयनिया समाई के, प्रीति लगाई के, अपनी शरण में लगा ओ, अपनी शरण में लगाए। अरे कान्हा रे मोरे कान्हा, मोरे कान्हा। मन में लगनिया लगाई के, अवली सुनाई के, कान्हा छुपे हो कहाँ ओ, कान्हा छुपे हो कहाँ। अरे कान्हा रे मोरे कान्हा, मोरे कान्हा। अरे कान्हा रे मोरे कान्हा, मोरे कान्हा, मोरे कान्हा, मोरे कान्हा। प्रेम से बोलो बाके वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय हो। राधे राधे, राधे राधे। Finally tonight, Sage Sukhmuni ji again speaks to the King Parikshit, Maharaj Parikshit. He says, in the Krishna avatar, every single act of his was an amazing miracle, not so? He says, oh Parikshit, in this unique avatar, every act was an amazing miracle. Even when angry, he could not be evinced his overflowing love, prema. It flowed continuously. In love, his compassion flowed uninhibited, unhindered. Though his sight, his touch, and his conversation, his darshan, sparshan, and sambhashan, one could even earn liberation. Through his sight, his touch, and conversation, darshan, sparshan, and sambhashan, one could earn liberation. He granted immortality to those who remembered his name. This is why we sing constantly, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. The cowherds amongst whom he lived and moved tasted the nectar of ecstasy whenever they witnessed his deeds or remembered them. O King, the Bhagavata is not merely the narrative of the Lord's story in the background of Mathura, Vrindavan, Gokula, and in the banks of the Yamuna, Nanda, Yashoda, Vasudev, Devaki, and others. Bhagavata includes the story of all the incarnations of the Lord Bhagavan. All incarnations were the manifestations of the self-same Gopal or Krishna from Vishnu's heaven, Vaikuntha Loka. The story of each is but the story of Vasudeva emerging from him and merging in him. The divine power is a sustaining factor for all incarnations as well as for all living beings.
Then the sage Sukmuni's eyes closed. He was in a state of transcendent spiritual bliss or samadhi. Parikshit was astounded by the sight of the waves of joy that overpowered the great sage whenever he allowed his mind to dwell on Bhagwan Shri Krishna's divine career. He too yearned now with enthusiastic impatience to listen to the ever enrapturing and capturing incidents and activities of the Lord. And when Sukmuniji resumed, Parikshit lost all consciousness of his surroundings. He was so struck with wonder that he couldn't believe that some of the incidents had ever even happened. Devotees, he got immense pain and an unbearable agony at the thought of his own inconsistency. So he placed his problem before his sage now, and he won peace of mind from his explanation and elaboration. And while proceeding thus, on one occasion, the king developed serious doubts about the devotion, the bhakti of the cowherd maids, the gopis. He argued within himself and sought remedial assurances through his own understanding and faith. But when the doubts now wouldn't vanish, nor had he had the courage to ask the sage, who might consider them to be too childish, so he was suffering and smothering and suffering. Devotees, this became very evident now, his behavior to the sage, who asked the king with a smile. He says, "Evidently, Maharaj, some insane idea is distracting your mind. In this crisis, it is not beneficial to suffer from repressed emotions. If some doubt is simmering in you, or if a thirst to know about something is hurting you, don't hesitate to ask me. I will resolve the doubt. I'll quench the thirst and ensure joy and the content of mind." Thus encouraged, the king then spoke. He said, "Master, you know the past, the present, and the future. You have the vision and the capacity to cure me of the doubt that is pestering me. Therefore, please do not misunderstand me. Cure me of the anguish I have on account of it. Restore the peace of mind that I have before my doubt entered my heart." The king then fell at the sage's feet, and he continued. He says, "Master, I have heard much in various versions of the sport and pranks of Lord Krishna's Rasa dance, the Rasa Creed, with the cowherd maids, the gopis of Vrindavan. They appear to be sensual pastimes of ordinary mortals. If such incidents did indeed happen, how can they be interpreted as divine? Aren't they disapproved by the world? These incidents of Vrindavan on the Yamuna banks, where such loose, sensual, lascivious plays were enacted, Lord Krishna's divine nature, I am afraid. It is said that the ultimate release, moksha, can be attained only by those who transcend the qualities, the gunas. These cowherd maids were afflicted with qualities of the desires born out of them, mostly sensual and objective. It amazes me to hear that the maids were able to attain freedom, moksha. Indeed, it appears ridiculous. However, if these immortal activities have some inner significance in them that justifies their being accepted as praiseworthy, please, O sage, enlighten me." Sukmunijan laughed. He said, "O king, don't think that you are afflicted by a doubt. It is much worse. For those who have realized that Krishna is the Lord himself, they won't even entertain such doubt. This is the final period of Dwapar age, and then the Kali age is beginning soon. The spirit of the age of wickedness, the Kali spirit, has entered into you already and has prompted you to lodge such ideas in your mind, the doubt, you see. Or else you would have unshaken faith that Krishna is the sovereign, supreme God. Every incident in his career shines in your heart with divine brilliance. Prem se bolo Baki Bindraban Bihari Lal ki jai. Type it into your chat windows. Jai Shri Krishna. The sage continues to speak to the king Parikshit. He says, "O king, the moment you recollect his name, you are overcome by joy and your thoughts merge in him. So these doubts can't arise in such as you. You are defiling your personality by them. Consider what type of person I am. You know that there's no place in my heart for activities born out of gunas or the impulses created by these qualities. Just consider how such a one as I am overpowered with supreme joy when I contemplate on Bhagwan Shri Krishna's divine sport with the cowherd maid, the gopis. Consider how I praise the good fortune of these maids who had his precious companionship. Can this be an ordinary sensual sport? No. Or is the pure and genuine exuberance of the divine intoxication? Think for a while, O Parikshit," the sage said. He said, "Sensual exaltation and divine exhilaration might appear the same in the external manifestations to the untrained eye. But when the senses are transcended, when the individual and the universal have merged into one thought and one consciousness, when all awareness of the body has been negated, then to interpret these activities as objective and sensual is sheer stupidity, to say the least. A knife in the hands of a murderer is fraught with danger to all, and a knife in the hands of a surgeon confers freedom from pain. In both cases, a hand holds the knife, not so? So too, the acts of one whose self is centered in the body are to be condemned, while those of one whose self is centered in the Atma, or the inner reality, are highly beneficial and praiseworthy. It all looks so peculiar, so extraordinary. Very often it resembled lawlessness and sheer mischief. While walking in the eastern direction, his attention was fixed in the western direction. He conversed through his eyes. The flash of his eyes spoke out of his plans and intentions. And he didn't care for the human limitations and disciplines. He didn't recognize the distinction between new and old acquaintances. He treated them both alike. He didn't respect kingship or yield to the demands of convention. Krishna's form was bliss personified. Next, the mystery of Lord Krishna's incarnation. The embodiment of sweetness is most captivating. Exquisite charm, unrivaled sweetness, incomparable love. The Krishna form was the consecration of all of these. And that form was the treasure house of bliss, the ocean of virtue. Oh, what innocence, what superhuman excellence. The mere sight of him was enough. Listening to his words is enough. Merely touching him is enough. And one's life will find its ultimate goal. All rituals and sacrifices, all scriptural ceremonies have their goal. Only this sight, this listening, this touch. The gain that accrues from the rites are nothing compared to the gain from the sight and the touch and the listening to the voice of Bhakti Bindraban Biharila. Type into the chat windows, Jai Shri Krishna. No, they are nothing at all. Ah, what immeasurable sweetness. Contemplating on that form, recollecting the charm and the loveliness, the sage started shedding profuse tears now of joy. He was so full of inward bliss, and he stopped narrating and lost all consciousness in himself and his listeners. And the ascetics around him and the king himself, they became overcome with wonder at the rare sight of the sage's transcendental state samadhi. The illumination on his face had an overpowering impact, devotees. They sat like statues, afraid to disturb the sage, and immersed in their own amazement and joy. After some time, Sukhmuni opened his eyes and exclaimed, "How fortunate were the herdsmen and the maids! How fortunate were the herdsmen and the maids, the gopas and the gopis who lived then! How their bodies must have shone with the divine joy they experienced when they moved in his company and played with him, talked with him, sang with him, and shared supreme bliss, Ananda, with him. Gods envied their luck, for it was their chance that they could not secure. Those simple, illiterate folk had the singular good fortune as a consequence of the merit acquired in their previous lives, their past deeds. Those herdsmen and cowsmaids weren't just common men and women. No, at first sight, they struck one as very simple, unlearned folk. That was all. But they had a vast treasure revealed wisdom, which only a few could appreciate and understand, devotees, or else how could they have secured the bliss of the Lord's touch, which even Rukmini and Satyabhama couldn't win so easily? The herdsmen and the maids can be said to be more fortunate than even those queens. Their good fortune was the fruit of the good deeds done by them during not only one but 3 previous lives. And in both cases, a hand holds a knife. Tonight, as we sing now this final bhajan, bringing our Kathaa to a close, this part of the Kathaa, that is, we'll prepare for growing pearls of kindness. Next week, on episode 104, we'll continue here from where we stopped tonight, on the avatars of Bhagwan Sri Rama, and of course, Mohan Muralya Ghansham Sri Krishna Ji. Let us sing this beautiful bhajan tonight. It says, "O joy of Nanda, O joy of Nanda, it is late, and your friends are waiting on the path where you left. The gwalas and the children asking, where have you gone? Nobody wants to go to the garden to pick flowers without you. Everyone is eagerly waiting to hear the melody of your basuri on the banks of the Yamuna. Why have you placed us in this sorrow? We plead to you, recognize the mystery of your actions. The earth where you once came in human form is in chaos. We beseech you, O Lord, to grant the promise you made in the Gita. O Mohan, nobody is here for us. Man dwells alone in this age without you." Let's sing beautifully tonight. O badi der bhaye Nand Lala, teri rahat ke brij bala. Bolo, badi der bhaye Nand Lala, teri rahat ke brij bala.
ग्वाल बाल एक एक से पूछे कहाँ है मुरली वाला रे, बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहट के ब्रिज वाला। कोई क्या जाने कुंज गलिन में, तुझ बिन कलियां चूमे को तरस रहे। तरस रहे हैं जमुना के तट पर धुन मुरली के सूने को। अब तो दरस दिखा दे नतकत, क्यों दुविधा में डाला रे, बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहट के ब्रिज वाला। ओ बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहत के ब्रिज वाला। संकट में है आज वो धरती जिस पर तूने जन्म लिया, पूरा कर दे ओ, पूरा कर दे आज वचन को, गीता में जो तूने दिया। कोई नहीं है तुझ बिन मोहन, भारत का रखवाला रे, बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहट के ब्रिज वाला। ओ बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहट के ब्रिज वाला। ग्वाल बाल एक एक से पूछे कहाँ है मुरली वाला रे, बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहट के ब्रिज वाला। ओ बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहत के ब्रिज वाला। बड़ी देर भये नंद लाला, तेरी राहत के ब्रिज वाला। प्रेम से बोलो बाके वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय। प्रेम से बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय, प्रभु रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। ओम गम गणपतये नमः, गजानन स्वामी की जय। My dear brothers and sisters, tonight it's time for silent sitting, growing pearls of kindness. Tonight I ask all of you, those seated on the floor, please cross your legs, sit upright. If you're on a chair tonight, I want you to sit with your backs upright. Gently clasp your hands, bow your heads, or you can place your hands upwards on your legs like this, upwards. Take a deep breath now, gently close your eyes. So hum as we breathe in and exhale. We'll chant 3 Oms and then 21 recitations of Om Namah Shivaya. Now 21 recitations of Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, 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 Om Namah Shivaya. Take another deep breath, devotees. Let a feeling of love grow through your heart. Let it spread all through you. Tonight, think of someone you know who is ill or hurt and send this love to them. Let your love spread further and further to everyone. Say it to your parents, your siblings, and those around you. I know that God is always with me, everywhere and in everything. I understand that what I think and what I say and what I do has an effect on others as well as myself, and that every being needs love and kindness. I will choose to be kind to you and to everyone, to all the animals, the plants and planet Earth, and to all creatures everywhere. Now bring your attention back to where you are. Open your eyes and stretch. Smile at the person next to you. How do you feel? I want you to rub the palms of your hands together like this, generate some heat.
And then place it over your eyes, cupping your eyes, and let that heat transfer into the eyelids. Positive energy, a form of yoga. Tonight, it is time for Growing Pearls of Kindness, our children's series. And these stories, although geared for children, are loaded with great teachings and lessons for us all. It is my hope that these stories will instill faith and remind our younger generation that they too are God's children and that we are their earthly guardians, to be kind and to make a positive difference in this world. Children, how are you growing your pearls of kindness at home? Are you growing these pearls every day, helping your parents, your siblings, and the environment in thoughts and words and in actions? Listen, let us listen tonight to this beautiful story. It says, "Thank you, God. There was a small bird living in a desert with no sign of greenery." Of course, a desert is very barren, only sand, right? With no sign of greenery, the bird used to hop around on the hot sand throughout the day. An angel, while on his way to God, saw the little bird and felt very pity, He went and he asked, he says, "Oh, little birdie, what are you doing in this hot desert? Can I do something for you?" The little bird said, "I'm very pleased with my life, but this heat is unbearable. Both my feet are getting burnt. Only if there was a tree here, I'd be delighted." The angel said, "Growing a tree in the middle of the desert is beyond my scope. Let me see, I'm going to meet God. Let me speak to him and ask if he could fulfill your desire." So the angel went, and asked God if he could help the bird. God said, listen carefully, "I could grow a tree, but her destiny does not allow it, and I can't change that. However, you can give her my message, which will help her survive the heat. Ask her to hop with one foot at a time. That way she can rest the other for a while and change feet as often as possible. This way only one of her feet will have to bear the heat, and the other one will be able to rest and recover. Also, tell her to remember all the good things that have happened in her life and to be thankful to God for that." The angel came back to where the bird was and gave her the message from God. The bird was delighted by the idea and thanked him for the effort he made to make her comfortable. And after a few days now, the angel was crossing the same desert, and he thought, maybe I should pay a visit to this bird. When he went now, he saw the bird sitting on a big green tree right in the middle of the desert. The angel was very happy to see the bird in comfort, but was very disappointed with God, who suggested that there was no tree in the bird's destiny. He went back to meet God and he told him the whole story. God replied, "I never lied to you. There was no tree in the bird's destiny. However, after you gave her my message, which asked her to be grateful to God for the things, the kind things, she did put those words into action. She remembered every possible thing from her life and thanked God with a very pure heart. I was moved with her feeling of gratitude, and that's why it made me change her destiny." And the angel now was very pleased with the answer. You see, devotees, a small gratitude can bring so much in our lives. Beautiful story, isn't it? Questions and personal reflections now. How did you feel as you listened to the story tonight? Does the story remind you of anything in your own lives? Do you gratefully accept whatever comes your way? Do you utilize the gifts that God gave you, that is, your intellect, your body, vivek, discrimination, to make a difference in your lives and the lives of others? Or do you wait for others to do something for you? How do you spend the gift of 24 hours you receive every single day? As the quote says, God gave you a gift of 86,400 seconds today. Have you used even one of those seconds to say thank you? What are you grateful for? What are you grateful for in your lives today? Type it in. Learning lessons and quotes tonight. Without a direct action expression of it, non-violence, to my mind, is meaningless, says Mahatma Gandhi. You send out an energetic field that affects the world around you. And with that heart energy, you have the power to change your world and unknown. Your life does not get better by chance, it gets better by change, says Jim Rohn. A spiritual endeavor strives for the sincere introspection and right conduct, says Joseph Rain. Non-violence means avoiding not only external physical violence, but also internal violence of spirit. You only not refuse to shoot a man, but you refuse to hate him, Martin Luther King. Non-violence is not a garment to be put on and off at will. Its seat is the heart, and it must be an inseparable part of our being, says Mahatma Gandhi. Let's add another act of kindness and continue growing our strands of pearls. Please say to everyone around you on this broadcast tonight, I love you. Come on, type it into your chat windows. I love you. Devotees, from this beautiful Kathaa tonight, what will you take away and put into practice? After you type I love you, I want to type in that. What will you take and put into practice? What teachings have you learned? Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I'd like to take this opportunity to wish all of you tonight, wherever you are listening to, all across this world, a very blessed, very safe, and a very holy Ganesha Utsav. Devotees, please continue wearing your masks. If you have not yet been vaccinated, please do not hesitate. Please get vaccinated. प्रेम से बोलो गजानन स्वामी की जय, मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम भगवान रामचंद्र की जय, बाके वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय, उमापति महादेव की जय, सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय, प्रेम से बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय. To everyone celebrating your birthdays and anniversaries this past week or this upcoming week, I say to you, happy birthday, happy anniversary. May God bless one and all. Those of you who are prepared for Arati tonight, I please ask you to stand as we sing Bhagavat Arati. Bhagavata Bhagavan ki hai Arati, papiyo ko paap se hai tarati. Hari Om. Sajan chavach samyuktam mahinayojitam maya दीपम ग्रहाण देवश त्रैलोक्यम तिमिरापहम. जय भागवत भगवान की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. जय भागवत भगवान की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. ये अमर ग्रंथ ये मुक्ति पंथ ये पंचम वेद निराला, नव ज्योति जगाने वाला, हरि गान यही वरदान यही, जग मंगल की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. जय भागवत भगवान की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. ये शांति गीत पावन पुनीत, पापों को मिटाने वाला, हरि दर्श दिखाने वाला, हर सुख करनी है दुख हरनी, ये मधुर सुधन की आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. जय भागवत भगवान की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. ये मधुर बोल जग पंड खोल, सन्मार्ग दिखाने वाला, बिगड़ी को बनाने वाला, श्री राम यही घनश्याम यही, सबकी महिमा की आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. जय भागवत भगवान की है आरती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती, पापियों को पाप से है तारती. कथा विसर्जन हो तो है, सुनो हो वीर हनुमान. कथा विसर्जन हो तो है, सुनो वीर हनुमान. रामा लक्ष्मण जानकी सदा करो कल्याण. एक घड़िया दो घड़ी आदो में पुनिया, तुलसी संघट सारी के घटे खोट अपराध. हो जो जन जहां से आए हो, जो जन जहां से आए हो, कथा सुनो मन लाए, अपने अपने ध्यान को विदा हो हर्षाय. श्रोता सब आसम गए, शंभु गए कैलाश. रामायण मम हृदय महान, आन करहु तुम पार. ओ रामा लक्ष्मण जानकी, रामा लक्ष्मण जानकी, भरत शत्रुघ्न भाई. कथा विसर्जन होत है, इक्कीसी शनिवार. धन्य घड़ी महायादि की, जहाँ होत हरि नाम.
लड़के कौन्य कला ये जड़ी गई ये वहाँ जाए। परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमात्मा इष्टार्थ मोक्ष प्रदातं बाबा विभूतिम् इदमाश्रयामि। परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं। प्रेम से बोलो महापति महादेव की जय। बाके वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। Devotees, now we sing our final bhajan tonight. Om Namah Shivaya as we glorify Him. Clap your hands and sing with me. Come on. Feel the energy. Type into your chat windows. Jai Shiva Shankar. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Shiva Rameshwara. Shiva Rameshwara. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Shiva Gangadhara. Shiva Gangadhara. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Shiva Jatadhara. Shiva Jatadhara. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Shiva Someshwara. Shiva Someshwara. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Shiva Vishveshwara. Shiva Vishveshwara. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Shiva Koteshwara. Shiva Koteshwara. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Mahakaleshwara. Mahakaleshwara. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Har Har Bole. Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Let us pray. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. प्रेम से बोलो महापति महादेव की जय। गजानन स्वामी की जय। प्रभु रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। श्री सत्य सनातन धर्म की जय। वाके वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। देवी दुर्गा भवानी शंकर माता की जय। प्रेम से बोलो पवन पुत्र हनुमान की जय। प्रेम से बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय हो। My dear brothers and sisters, I thank all of you. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence this evening. I say to each and every one of you, Koti Koti Dhanyavad. Please enjoy the rest of the Ganesh Utsav celebrations and certainly exercise all safety and precautions if you are attending any functions. My dear devotees, we pray tonight for all those who are sick and suffering. We share our love, send our loves to them. Tonight I ask you, as you leave Shivoham tonight, as you sign off, take a minute and sit. Take a few minutes, and sit quietly
And just let that positivity, that energy that you've worked up and built up over the past 2 hours, let it resonate within you, purify your mind, your body, and your soul. Tonight I say thank you to all of you and every single one of you for tuning in. Continue to like my Facebook page at FL Pandit. Continue to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Pandit Persad, and of course you can find me also on Instagram, FL Pandit, FLPANDIT. That's my handle. Thank you so much. God's blessings to each and every one of you. Until we meet again next week, I say to all of you, next week Tuesday 7 to 9 p.m. Chidananda Rupaha, Shivoham, Shivoham. Love all, serve all, selflessly. Okay? Hari Om.